Thank you so much for joining me today, Jenna and Jonah. How are you two doing?
Doing great. It's a beautiful day.
Jenna?
It
It
is
is a very beautiful day.
absolutely a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's lovely outside.
Mhm.
So you're just about a week until opening night of Much Ado About Nothing at St. Dunstan's. How are you feeling about the production and the rehearsal process so far?
It gets more fun every day. I feel like every day we show up to rehearsal and there are new sort of things placed around the theater. Like the other day we walked in and there were all these trees and plant life all over the place. And we were like, oh, cool. So suddenly we got to play in all of those. And there are scenes in particular where me and Jonah are kind of running around all over the stage and hiding behind stuff. And so we got to have a lot of fun playing with kind of our new toys recently. And it just seems like every day it gets better and better and more fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I personally love working with sets a lot whenever I can. As I've mentioned to Jenna before, there's a scene where I want to jump on not a table, but I don't know why I can't remember the word, not a stool,
Like
a bench, a bench. There we go. Where I want to jump on a bench and play off of it. And now I finally get to do that because we actually have the bench. And like Jenna said, we get to hide behind some plants and what. And that was very fun to do. But also now the costumes, because I've never done a Shakespearean show before. Actually being able to use those costumes is like rewarding, I think, to actually be put in the costumes. I love doing costumes as well.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like the final piece to like assembling the character, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I always feel that way. I don't know if you feel the same way too, Jonah, but I feel like that's the final moment where you actually start to feel like the character, where you put on their clothes and you're like, oh, suddenly I don't know, suddenly I feel like you understand something about them a little bit better. And then it sort of clicks in that final piece, which feels really
Absolutely. It's also when, even before we put on the costumes, when the guys and I put on the swords, you can tell our postures all changed immediately,
yeah.
to being more straight up and walking with purpose as we had our swords swinging at our sides.
It's kind of like the make believe dress up when you're a kid, you know? Like you finally become that character when you get to put it all together and you're in the
Exactly.
scene and everything feels right. So
hmm And my play acting as a kid also had as much world building as Shakespeare, of course.
Of course.
So for those who maybe are unfamiliar with the story, Jonah, what is the story of Much Ado About Nothing?
Well, hopefully not too unfamiliar because there was a movie that recently came out with Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney that was, I believe, loosely based off of Much Ado About Nothing. But for those who
Correct.
haven't seen it, basically it revolves around two couples, Beatrice and Benedict, who are played by Jenna and myself respectively, and Claudio and Hero, who are played by Jeff and Ellie respectively. Two of them are about lovers that fall in love for the first time and are having a beautiful moment together. That's Claudio and Hero. And then there's Benedict and Beatrice, who had some kind of a relationship. It fell through, and basically the friends contrived to get them back together in a very convoluted way. Much ado about nothing. There's a big hubbub about like the smallest thing in the world. So, very apt title, I would say. The Shakespeare guy knows what he's talking about.
And Jenna, so you're playing Beatrice.
Yes, that's right.
Who is she to you? Like, or like, what's her story through the narrative? And then, like, how do you develop this character?
Oh, what a great question. I love Beatrice so much. So, as Jonah mentioned, Beatrice and Benedict are effectively exes. This story is kind of the originator of the enemies to lovers trope or the exes to lovers trope that we see in so many stories now. But I have loved Beatrice for a really long time, actually. I can remember reading Much Ado About Nothing when I was in 11th grade in high school. And I remember at the end of that year, our teacher had us write like a kind of for fun essay at the end of the year. And it was, which character out of all the books and plays we've read this year do you think you are the most similar to? And I was like, oh, Beatrice, Much Ado About Nothing, easily. Instantly, that was the answer. And I love her so much because here's a couple of things about her. Number one, she's an amazing, I'm going to use the phrase older sister. She's technically an
Okay.
older cousin to Hero, her little girl cousin, but they're really more like sisters. They're extremely close. And I'm an eldest sister to a younger sister. And so I feel a lot of that protectiveness about my little sister. And if someone messes with your little sister as an older sister, you're driven to madness and to rage.
For
And
sure.
Beatrice is, as you'll see in the play. So I definitely identify a lot with that. Also, as I grow older, I think I identify a lot with some of her cynicism and jadedness a little bit, especially in regard to love, I guess I would say. And so I think she's very guarded because she's been hurt before. And the way that she guards herself is with her sense of humor and her wit. And she likes to make everybody laugh and make herself laugh. And all the other characters comment about how she has this merry heart and this lightness of spirit, which she does. But I think she's also sort of using that to mask some of her inward unhappiness. So I think she's really complicated and really interesting. And I like playing her very much.
I was going to say what I love about that is that what you're describing, it's very easy to become jaded when you've been hurt so much throughout
Yeah.
love. And it sounds like she still has like a lightness to her.
Yeah, I think she definitely does. Many characters will comment and say, you have a merry heart, or you were born under a happy star. Like, she's well regarded as this joyful person, which I think is really lovely. And especially for someone who has been hurt before, that she carries that with her, I think is really cool and interesting.
And I love that you're able to kind of pull from your own life, like you said, like protective sister, eldest sister, that, I mean, that brings a realism to the character as well, that you can feel that connectiveness to it.
Definitely. Even now, my sister will tell me stories about various boys in her life who have hurt her feelings, and I'm like, where are they? What's their home address? I'm going there right now. I relate to that experience.
They're going to receive a strongly worded letter.
That's right. That's right.
They're a well-written, strongly worded letter.
A well-written, strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
That's right.
And Jonah, what's kind of your character arc through the narrative of Much Ado?
Benedict, much like to myself, is a very sarcastic, quick-witted person, always trying to get in some kind of funny joke, either to make himself or someone else laugh at what he's saying. And his character arc is what you've seen in a lot of romantic comedies, which again, as Jenna mentioned, this Much Ado About Nothing is the progenitor of those romantic comedies, where first he's jaded and against Beatrice, and eventually he starts feeling, okay, we had some good times way back then. Maybe she's still cool, to head over heels falling in love with her and willing to go to some extreme actions for his love for her. So I think that shows his growth as a character from being a jaded, sarcastic, annoying, just trying to shove in jokes whenever he can, to someone who's willing to accept someone else into his life, again, I guess, and make him a better person.
That is quite the character arc if you think about it. Like you kind of hit all the major points as you're going from point A to point B here.
And like I said, this Shakespeare guy, he's pretty good. He should write some more stuff.
Where's the sequel to Romeo and Juliet? We're still waiting, right? No.
That's it.
So, Jonah, what is your process for developing a character such as Benedict? So you get the scripts. How do you kind of like pay homage to what is on the page, but also to kind of make it your own?
Well, whenever I'm doing a show, and I know it's a show that's been done before, musical, play, whatever, what I don't do usually is I don't watch anything else. I like to just develop it from what I have learned. I had never seen Much Ado About Nothing before. The day of the audition, I watched the Kenneth Branagh version just because, again, I had never seen it before. So I wanted to know what it was about, basically. But I didn't really take much from him because, and no, not to Kenneth Branagh, he's a great actor. I just found his Benedict so very whiny. And I don't personally think, while Benedict does complain a lot, I think he's more sarcastic than whiny. And I think the words on the page lead to being more into my character where I'm like, okay, I'll say it, but I'm also doing it with a wink and a grin. But I think also talking with the director, because the director, he knows exactly what he wants me to do. And I say 99 out of 100 times, we're always on the same page. So we can talk, we can have this conversation. But first it starts with reading the script and understanding. That's the thing. With most Shakespeare, it takes us at least 4 or 5 readings to understand it. Thankfully, Much Ado About Nothing is not really in prose that much. It's pretty modern for the language. There's a couple, thous and wouldst thous here and there, but it's not even in iambic pentameter. And there's a couple rhymes here and there. So I'd say take 3 times to read it through, understand what's being said, understand not just the context, but the subtext underneath what the characters are saying. Make sure you add pauses where you need to emulate the subtext, and speak of the director. So that's how I would build a character. Read 3 times, check for pauses, talk to the director, only watch something if they specifically say, watch this one, which thankfully I've not had a director say, I want you to do this exact performance.
Now, Jenna, you had, like you said, you've had quite a relationship with this story, and so when you got to have this character, has your relationship changed with the character since that first time, and also how do you develop your character then, having that relationship with her?
Yeah, this is such a cool question. I think that as I was kind of memorizing my lines and going over the text so many times repeatedly as you're trying to memorize things, you discover things in it that you might not have noticed before. And I think particularly, so I'm an English teacher and also a theater teacher. So I like to ruminate on the little language stuff that's going on in the text. And I think it's so interesting that Jonah, and I think most people would say, that most of this text truly does feel very naturalistic. It doesn't feel, for the most part, poetic. There's not a lot of rhyming. There's not a lot of meter. For the most part, it feels so naturalistic. But if you have this internal iambic pentameter clock that I sort of have inside me, actually, there are these moments where characters do slip into iambic pentameter, which is that. For those who are not in the know, it's that classic Shakespeare rhythm of the 10 beats 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, where like the even numbered beats are kind of getting the stress or the emphasis. It's meant to feel like a heartbeat. And we find in life we often say things in iambic pentameter without really realizing it because it feels very much like the natural way that we speak. But what I think is so interesting about this text is, for the most part, it's not in iambic pentameter, but there are times when it is, and it's so subtle you won't really notice it as a listener. But as an actor, whenever I see that on the page, I think, okay, this is a moment where Shakespeare is wanting me to feel my own heartbeat more than I
Okay.
was before. And maybe that's because this is a romantic moment. Maybe that's because my character is scared of something. Maybe these emotions are just running really high. There's a scene, there's a very climactic scene in this play at a wedding where things start to change very quickly. And all of a sudden in that scene, most of the characters are speaking in that iambic pentameter. And it's almost like you can hear like the beating of their hearts, I feel. So I just find stuff like that really, really interesting and fun to track throughout a script and to see where Shakespeare is giving me the clue that this is a place where your emotions are running higher than they would be otherwise. So I like looking at that kind of stuff.
That is actually impressive. That I knew about iambic pentameter, obviously, but like I didn't realize that like he would use it in moments like that. But that makes sense, like it heightens that emotion almost without even like consciously recognizing it.
Totally. Totally. You
I'm
just
not an
start to
English
feel it
teacher
in your
either,
bones.
so I didn't catch that.
Totally.
But it's cool though, Jonah, that you have somebody that is so kind of in the know about things like that, because it does kind of help to like Jenna, I'm assuming like in those moments, like you're saying, you're developing those things, but it's almost easier to slip into it when you understand like this is the moment I'm supposed to be like emotional, or like
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be in love, or whatever that the motion is that he's trying to convey, but you slip back into something that is structured like that.
I will say Jenna is an amazing scene partner as well. She just knows very well how to play both to herself, but off of other people in a very excellent way. So I'll give you a compliment on that one, Jenna.
And while we're here, I would say the same thing about Jonah. It's been so much fun creating these two characters together. Jonah's like the consummate professional. And I remember being at auditions and watching Jonah do the Benedict monologue and being like, oh, they should just send the rest of us home. Like, they don't need to see any more things today. They found their Benedict. We can all leave.
What was very nice is we actually were in a show previously together. We were in a dogfight over at Stagecrafters back in, was that February?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was really nice to be like, oh, the person I'm going to be spending a lot of time with is someone I already know personally. So it was a blessing, not in disguise, I guess, but just a blessing to be able to work with Jenna again.
And it helps to build that chemistry between the two characters. Like you said, while this is kind of the enemies to lovers, you do need to have some familiarity with each other to really be able to kind of build off that. Or I assume it makes it easier to build off of that.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
it's very easy to make whether emotions, anger, love, if you have good chemistry with your scene partner.
And for characters who spend so much of this play like bickering and bantering with each other, there are also moments where you can tell, and moments where it makes a turn, but moments where you can tell that they fundamentally trust each other very much, and they put a lot of faith in each other to do right by them. It's just clear that they've known each other for a long time, and that that base love is still there, even if they, have broken up before the action of this play begins or whatever. So it's cool to see and feel that.
They do have some very fun lines against each other, though, I will say.
Me too.
My favorite line in the entire show is one barb that I speak about her. If I may,
Please.
it's I would to God some scholar would conjure her, speaking of Beatrice, for certainly while she were here, a man may live as quiet in hell as in a sanctuary, and people sin upon purpose because they would go thither. Which I just love that. If she were here, people could go to hell and would sin so they could go to hell instead of being with her, which I find that is so funny to me.
Unbelievably rude.
It's great. Very rude. Absolutely rude.
Yeah.
But so funny. I love that
I was
line
like,
so
damn,
much.
that is like the meanest line I've ever heard.
I know. It's so mean, but it is, well,
Well, it
like I said, it's right in my humor. Obviously, I wouldn't say something like that to someone really,
Right.
but that is such a beautiful line.
And I think it does speak to, like you said as well, like that line could, even that line alone, like if you do it with sarcasm, it could be funny, but that also, depending on the portrayal, could be a very like whiny line, depending
yeah.
on the actor.
Mm-hmm. And Kenneth Branagh was very whiny doing it.
Whatever direction they were going with in that film, no. So you're actually doing this show outside at the Greek Theatre at St. Dunstans, which is always unique. I just saw, well, I've seen 2 shows there. I've seen Sound of Music and I saw Grease. But Jenna, I'm gonna start with you. What is like, I guess, like, is it challenging to be outside in a Greek theater, especially as we're getting into fall time and you're performing, like, or does that add to the ambiance of the story, do you feel like?
Oh, I think it totally adds to it. It's one of the things that I'm most excited about, actually, because in this theater, there are all these like towering pine trees all around us that are always
Yes.
sort of blowing in the breeze, and you can hear sort of bird song in the distance. And I just think it's so cool. And as the night goes on, obviously the sun goes down, it gets a little darker, and the play gets a little darker as some things go on too. So you feel that sort of, I don't know, it's like all of nature is moving with you throughout this play. I think it's so cool. And actually, the temperatures have been very comfortable, I think. And surprisingly, not a lot of, lately at least, not a lot of like bugs or mosquitoes or issues. It's just felt really lovely, like being outside on a summer evening, which is perfect for Much Ado About Nothing because we're set in this sort of beautiful area in Italy. Officially, the play is set in this beautiful part of Italy where everything should feel kind of like a lovely summer evening that's very peaceful. So it's nice that us and the audience get to be in this world together. And also, there are moments when characters have these sort of thundering, powerful soliloquies and monologues, and you can hear their words start to echo off of the stone and off of the trees, and you just feel very ancient and very powerful when you can hear your words echoing back to you like that. So it's great. I love it.
I was gonna say, so the first one I saw was Sound of Music, and there's something just about like being like when they're singing, "The Hills Are Alive," Sound of Music, and there is that like the sound and the sun setting and the trees. So I can only imagine how that does heighten the story of Much Ado About Nothing because it probably feels apropos.
Totally.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, not to be an English teacher about this too, but there are so many nature metaphors in this play for those who are wanting to have their English lesson today. So many characters in this play are compared to deer and bulls and like all these kind of animals, lambs and lions and oranges and plants. There's just so much nature imagery in the language of the play that I think is reinforced by being out in nature, which I think is cool.
That is very cool. And I'm thinking about it.
Mhm.
Jonah, what is it like for you to be in a Greek theater? I should ask, have either of you performed in a Greek theater outside before? No.
No.
Okay.
Nope. I did have an opportunity one time to visit a Greek theater when I went to Italy about 10-ish years ago. But I never performed in one. And honestly, I love it. It's amazing. And like she said, with the voice echoing off the stone, when I get there and no one's there, I do a warm-up monologue. I do Friends, Romans, Countrymen from Julius Caesar, and just hearing it echo off the stones is beautiful. But also one of the things I like about theater more than film acting is you can see your audience and you can get close to it. I've had experience in a black box theater where the audience is 5 feet away from you. And I love that. And for this Greek theater, there are certain parts in the show where we go within 5 feet of our audience. I know a couple of us get a little bit closer, but I love being able to see the audience and connect with them as I'm saying this weird monologue about how she should go to hell. I want to see someone laughing while I'm doing it, or they can be like, oh yeah, I've met someone like that. That some kind of connection where we can actually be with our audience in the moment. Because while we are performing for them, I want to have us all be in this experience together. And I think being in this Greek theater, we are so close to the audience. It fulfills exactly what I've always wanted. So I would love to do another show here after Much Ado About Nothing. And also, this is the first fall Greek theater show they've done. They only do like spring theater shows. And it's actually the first Shakespeare show they've done since 2016, which was their 100-year anniversary. So they're all like, yeah, let's just go for it. And then I was talking to Duncan. He was like, we might do, what is the one with St. Crispin's Day speech? Is that Henry IV?
Oh, good for them.
He
I
said
think, right?
he's going to talk to somebody about maybe doing that one next year. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but he mentioned it to me. And I was like, I would love that because I also love Crispin's Day speech. It's a great speech.
Is there any like when you're like on stage? Is there a different way to approach it when you're outside, or is it pretty much you're giving your character the same? Like, do you have to modulate your voice differently? Like, I would only assume, I'm not an actor, that it would be slightly different as how do you approach your character than you would on a stage, maybe inside, like you said, Jonah, like a black box theater.
I have not noticed having to make much of a difference because the acoustics are great in the theater. Like, even without mics, I could feel my voice echoing all throughout the entire little alcove. I haven't noticed anything personally. I haven't done much difference. In fact, I've been a bit more, I said I don't really like film acting as much, but I brought a little bit more of film acting in, more of the facial expressions, brought my voice down a little bit just because we are so close to our audience. But I don't necessarily think that's because it's an outdoor theater. I think it's because it's the Greek theater and we're so close.
Jenna, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, well, so on one hand, we are actually going to be mic'd for this show. So that will hopefully make things easy to hear for our audience. But we haven't been mic'd so far in rehearsal. So we've just been projecting our voices with our diaphragm. And there is something about projecting your voice beyond its normal conversational volume that, you know, you have to tap into all these muscles in your core, in your gut. And when you're like, you know, your abdomen is sort of activated, it kind of puts your whole body into it in a way that, for the most part in our lives, as we're going about just having natural chatty conversations with people, we're not like engaging our whole core muscles and our whole bodies, right? So when you're engaged in your core, I feel like the rest of your body also gets pulled in a way that it might not be otherwise. And at least for me, that makes me feel like I'm allowed to get weird with my body and move my arms and legs differently and bigger than I otherwise would have, because I feel more in tune with myself physically. I'm more aware of where all my limbs are, and I feel like I make bigger movements, kind of. So to me, maybe that's a difference, at least in my mind.
I mean, that makes sense, though. I mean, you're pushing the envelope just a little bit of just getting to be a little bit larger than life.
Yeah, exactly. And some of these words and speeches that they give are a little larger than life, or larger than we normally let ourselves be in life. I don't think they're larger than the actual emotions that we do experience as people, but I think we so rarely get an outlet for our biggest emotions. And I think theater, and Shakespeare in particular, gives us that outlet for the extraordinary emotions that we all have on the inside of our hearts and we rarely get to expel. So hopefully it feels good and cathartic to everybody, both in the audience and the actors, to get to experience that.
I'm sure it will. I mean, it's cool. That's a cool way to describe it. It's the same emotions, but they're just a little bit bigger. You know, like they're not, the emotions themselves aren't bigger, but the presentation on the stage, you get to be a little bit more, I mean, Shakespearean. So with the show Much Ado About Nothing, I'm sure there's plenty of themes in this show. Shakespeare was a mastermind of all of this, but Jenna, what themes resonate with you the most?
Ooh. Okay, I love a story of love and forgiveness and redemption, and I think there's a lot of that going on in this play. There's a lot of people breaking each other's trust and making mistakes, and then apologizing for it and having to make amends and prove themselves and demonstrate their love for each other. And that's in both of the major couples of the play. They both kind of experience that. And I think it's very beautiful that Shakespeare's given us this sort of double love story where the men and the women in each relationship, I think, kind of have something to apologize for and can apologize and can find their way back. Hero doesn't really have anything.
Yeah,
to
let's say
apologize,
Hero's
but
the only
everybody
one
else.
that's probably.
But the
There's
other
everybody.
three.
Yeah.
And so I think that's very beautiful. And I also, as a woman living in 2025, I think we're living in an interesting climate, and I think women in particular have a lot to be angry about right now. There's something that feels very good for me as a woman to get to be very angry with men in this show, and to express that anger out loud. It's often not considered very acceptable for women to be angry with men and angry with the patriarchal institutions under which we live. And Beatrice and Hero both get to demonstrate their disgust and anger with that system and reckon with that system. And the men in their lives, particularly Benedict, helps fight back against that system. He's sort of this amazing
He's a
ally.
feminist. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He deeply is. So I love all of that stuff. I think that's great.
I love that this is very cathartic in the time that we're living in, that you get to kind of have this catharsis on stage.
Yeah, that's something that drew me towards the show for sure.
Jonah, how about for you? What themes really kind of stood out to you as you're in Much Ado About Nothing?
Themes of trust and with loyalty. The difference between characters that are loyal to each other and characters that trust each other to go beyond their loyalty. Sometimes there's men who have been fighting in wars together, but because someone they trust has asked them to do this specific thing, they're like, okay, I'm going to do this for you. But then there's the loyalty of some other friends where the big kerfuffle that happens in the wedding scene, one of the characters asks someone else to trust them that they didn't do this, and the other one is saying flat out, no, I heard from my friend, who I'm loyal to and is probably loyal to me, that you did this. So I all my life, I've always been thinking I should be loyal to my friends and I should trust my friends. And those are two very important themes, both in the show and in my life. So that's why I connect with them a bit more. Well, maybe not more, but I connect with them as this show, I think, centrally. Though I do love, of course, and feminism. And all that.
But you think about it, loyalty and friendship and stuff and trust, those are important aspects of love too, you know? Like there's a love for your friends there that you're loyal to somebody if you love them, you know?
It's very true.
Or you should be, at least.
I hope so.
Thank you so much, Jonah and Jenna, for being here. I really appreciate it. This has been such a great time. And we're so excited to see Much Ado About Nothing at St. Dunstans. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So Much Ado About Nothing arrives at St. Dunstan's Greek Theatre September 12th and runs through the 20th. So get your tickets now, and we'll see you at the show.
Have a good one. See you there.